Hi everyone, I'm Allie Buckman with the Potomac Bead Company, and I get to play with some new beads for you today in the Segovia Bracelet. Segovia is one of the famous aqueducts in Spain, and I think sort of the pillars and some of the new bead shapes really highlight that. The new shapes that I get to play with today and get to show off to you guys, there's actually 3 new shapes on the market, 4 new beads altogether that I am using. The first one here that really stands out in this bracelet is the arched bead, which is the Arcos bead. The Arcos bead is a new 3-hole bead that has an arch to it. You can see 1 hole goes through the middle and then 2 go through the sides. If you need any of the materials for this bracelet, on the left-hand side here, we'll do a little drop-down link that you can purchase from me online, or below the video, you can always go to the details, the description of the video. There's a little arrow that says show more, and we'll give links to the products there as well. So for the Segovia bracelet, I am using the Aztec Gold in the Arcos bead. Another new bead that is featured in the middle of this bracelet is the Minos bead. The Minos bead is a little bead here. You can see it's a little kind of tubular, almost a barrel-shaped bead with a hole going through the middle. They were designed to sit and fit exactly in the middle of the 2 Arcos beads. I'm going to be using the copper color of the Minos, and then also if you do want to get a second color here, I really liked the second color that I used to highlight the bars that I'm using, and it is the white mint luster. So I have those 2 in the Minos. The other beads that we have other than the new ones, so we have the Arcos, the Minos, and then I also have the demi-rounds. So the demi-rounds are actually a Toho extruded seed bead that are approximately half the width, a little bit more than half the width of the size 11 and size 8 seed bead. The 2 beads that I introduced to you first, the Arcos and the Minos, those are both check beads versus the actual seed beads. So the seed beads that I'm using again are the new demi-rounds from Toho. Here you can see just next to the actual size 8O seed bead and size 11O seed bead, you can see the difference in the size here just with this 2-drop peyote I was playing with to get the actual stitching and just the shape of them and to see the actual distance. So for those I'm going to be using 2 different colors as well as 2 different sizes. So the size 11 here that I have, it's a teeny tiny 11 that fits right inside there. It's a little bit more than half the width of a Toho 11O seed bead, and it's the crystal gold lined. Great color to have on hand because it kind of matches with everything, and you get a ton in a tube. Also on the 8O front, I'm going to be using the 8O in the demi-round, and this color is the dark olive matte. To pull the whole bracelet together, I am using another shape that most of you are going to be familiar with. This is the 2-hole bar. So this is another check glass bead, the 2-hole bar, and I'm using that in the white teal luster, which is just a tad bit darker than my Minos bead in that white mint luster. So I'm going to be playing those off one another. I'm going to close the whole bracelet with one of my cup buttons, and I'm using the vintage copper cup button color. I have my thread zap 2 sitting here handy on my bead on it board. And I'm going to be using 0.006 wildfire beading thread. In addition to that here, I have on a size 10 beading needle that I'll be using for the project. If you would like to have some super glue handy, you can have that handy, as well as a pliers to kind of flatten out the end of the thread so it's easier to actually thread your needle when you're working with it. To start out, we're going to need a pile of all of our beads except for our 2-hole bars. So we're going to keep the 2-hole bars off to the side, but I'm going to make a little pile of my 5 other beads here and get ready to get started with about 5 feet of beading thread on my needle. To get started, we're going to go right down the middle row here of our beads, and what we're going to do is just put a stop bead on the end of our long piece of thread. I have a bead sitting here that's not part of my design that I'm going to put on, and I don't need to leave a ton of tail because I'm usually just going to knot onto this. When you go up and down a project multiple times, it gives you multiple opportunities to put on your clasp. So I'm just going to put the stop bead on, going 2 times through it, away from the tail, and just leaving myself about 2.5–3 inches on the tail. Once I have that stop bead on, we're going to go right down the center, adding our center row. So if you look at the center row here, it is our Arcos and then our 11-0 in the demi round, the Minos 11-0 Arcos, and then it gets separated by another Minos and the 8s and 11s. So it's a very simple pattern, going the exact same every time. We're going through the center of the Arcos, and we're going to add the demi 11. My copper color is going to go between the Arcos, and then another 11 demi round, and then another Arcos so that it's facing towards itself. Push that all down next to my stop bead. And then next I'm going to put on my 8 demi, 11 demi, my other color here, that mint color of my Minos, 11, 8. This is my pattern the whole middle section of the bracelet. I'm just going to be repeating, putting on that same exact pattern. And it's a wide bracelet, but it's not going to shrink up at all in length. So you're going to want to do this the pretty much exact length of your wrist. We'll be adding then the cup button after, and that'll get you the exact size of the bracelet. So if you have a small wrist or if you have a larger wrist, you can figure that out exactly how many you need. So again, just adding the Arcos with the Minos in between and the 11-0 demi rounds on either side, and then the 8-0 demi rounds with the 11-0 on either side of the Minos. I'm going to continue doing this right down the center till I have about 7 of my Arcos groupings. So I've added 8 groupings actually of my Arcos around that copper Minos, and I'm at the end and I'm going to add on my cup button. I want to give just a little tiny space between the Arcos and the cup button so the cup button is not right on the end of that last Arcos bead. To do so, I'm going to pick up first an 8-0 just to kind of decorate the end there, and then 6 of my 11-0 demi rounds. That's going to set the cup button there right off the side a little bit. So it's going to have a little bit of space before it. Then I'm going to add another 8-0 demi round and 3 of the 11s. So I'll put on 4 there. I'm going to go up through the back of the cup button so that I'm going through with my needle coming out on the cup side. And then right here in the top, I'm going to bring in some of that teal color by adding in an 11, that teal Minos, or that mint Minos rather, and the 11. Come down the other side of the cup button. Once I'm out the cup button, I want to add 4 more of the 11s. And then I'm going to go down through that 11-0, or 8-0, I'm sorry, demi round. What that's going to do is create a little bit of a Y that's going to connect to the 2 ends of the cup button here. So you can see there. And there's a look at it of it from the front. And you really can drop anything in the middle of the cup button if you wanted to keep it open also, or if you wanted to use 3mm crystals in between the Arcos, you could do that and then put a 10.7mm Swarovski Rivoli in the cup button. So there's a lot of options there. What we're going to do now is come down our second side of our Arcos bead. So there's 3 holes to the Arcos. We went through the center hole, and now we're going to pick up one of the side holes. To get to one of the side holes, I'm going to go down my 11-0s here, right out the bottom, And then once I'm through my 11s, I'm going to just add 3 more and go from the middle hole to a side hole, pulling nice and tight. Coming down the side now, I get to add in my bricks, or my 2-holed bars rather, sorry. So I want to get a little pile of those going. And what we're going to be doing is adding those between the Arcos that are already on. We're also going to be adding a second set of Arcos separated by our 8-0 seed bead. In between the Arcos, we will add the demi round, another Minos, but that will happen on the next pass through. So, to simply start, add a 2-holed bar and sew through the second hole of the side that you're on, and that's just going to pop that 2-holed bar right there next to and in between those Arcos beads. Coming out then, I'm going to add an 8 and 2 Arcos, adding them facing one another, so I'm going up through the back of the Arcos and then through the side here, and that's going to put them right next to one another. After that, another 8 goes on. That all gets pushed down towards the bead mat, and here's what creates that little bit of a Y pattern. Then going through the next empty hole of the Arcos that's already on the project. Coming out that hole, 2-hole bar gets added. Through the next Arcos. So there's always going to be the 2-hole bar that's sticking out in between the Arcos that are already on there. And then in between the pre-existing Arcos, we add another set with an 8-0 in between, or on the sides rather, and the Arcos facing and touching one another. Another 8-0 gets added. And we sew through the next Arcos that's there. So you can see the pattern that is starting. And I'm just going to continue it the whole way down this side here. And then we'll go the whole way down the other side as well, adding in my second set of my Arcos here. So I'm at the end of adding my second grouping of my Arcos beads, and I need to come to the other side and add them as well. However, while I'm here at the end, I am going to add my loop for my clasp. My loop for my clasp is going to be on this other side here. Coming out the Arcos bead here to the side, I'm going to add some of my 11-0 demi rounds. I want to add 5 of those. And then like we did on the previous side, I'm going to add one of my 8-0 demi rounds. And then I'm going to start my loop. What's going to happen is we're going from this third hole here. We're going to skip the middle hole, and I'm going to go and connect to the third hole on the opposite side too. The demi rounds are a little bit small, so I'm actually going to take off this 8. Add 2 more. And put a demi round back on. Now I'm going to go ahead and put on a bunch of the 11-0 demi rounds to create my loop to go around my button. Normally you want about 25 to 28 11-0 seed beads. Because these are a little bit less than half the size, I'm going to be looking at about 40 of these. And just add them in. If you want to, you could also use your 8-0s. You could put here at the end to kind of bring it together with your pattern. You could put another one of the Minos beads, so you can change up the end a little bit. Also, if you wanted to put on a clasp, you could use a wire guard, and here would be the place to put on an actual metal clasp as well. Some people prefer adding clasps at the end. I like to actually add them in the middle. If they do break at the end, it's a little bit more annoying, but it's less likely that they break if you're not adding them at the very, very end, because the thread is more in your project. Once you have enough beads on that the loop will fit around, I'm just going to add a couple more. I'm going to come back down that 8/0. So I'm going back down the 8/0. I'm coming out there. And I just want to make sure, because this is the first time I'm using the demi rounds, that my cup button is going to go around there. That looks like a pretty perfect fit. Also, if you add something in the cup button, that can make the rise a little bit higher, so you will need extra beads. Coming out then, I'm going to add in those 7 extra demi rounds and go into the opposite hole of my Arcos bead. So 7 of these go on. And then coming down the other side, we're going to go through that Arcos right there. You can see then that nice little V is made. We'll come and eliminate this stitch here and put a little bead in between there as well as we come back down the project one more time. We'll also be able to reinforce the loop as we're going to come back. We're also going to take that opportunity to reinforce our cup button too as we come back. So now that we have our loop on, we're going to come down the second side here, doing the exact same thing, adding our 2-hold bar in between the Arcos that are already there. And then once I'm between the Arcos, adding another set separated by an 8/0 seed bead. Facing one another, 8/0, and then into the next set of Arcos. 11/0, or I'm sorry, 2-hold bar there, and down through the Arcos. And just to show you then what it looks like, those 2-hold bars really won't cooperate very well until we go in and connect to them. So here's the start of it, adding in that nice grouping of 3 here, of the 3 rows of the Arcos. So continue down your bracelet, adding in that last group of your Arcos bead. As you finish coming down the second side, you can see the bracelet really starting to take form. What we're going to do now is add in our second row here, and from the second middle, I should say, of the Minos beads. The Minos are actually designed to fit exactly in the Arcos. Here in the center, I put an 11/0 in between each, so that way we could fit in that 2-hold bar. On the exterior row here, we're just going to put the Minos right in. I am going to take this opportunity to reinforce my end, so I'm coming out here. I'm going to add my 3 11/0 seed beads, and then I'm going to go up through my clasp. And it's a tight fit, but this will give you an opportunity to reinforce that. If you need to switch from a size 10 needle to a 12, you can do that. But the demi rounds actually have a fairly large hole, especially the 8s. Coming down then through the Minos there, and back down the cup button. I'm going to exit, go back through that 8/0 between them, go back down that line that we created. And this is the last time that I'll reinforce that cup button end. And then come back down a side. I'm going to come out the side that I did not just add. So I'm going back down that first side here. Once I'm out the side of all of my 11s, so I'm going to bring those out the side here and come out right on the side of this grouping of my 11s. Once out the 11s here, and I just try to bring it up closer to me in order to get through there, I'm going to add 6 more 11s to get to the second hole of the bar here. When I'm coming through the bar then, my pattern is actually going to add a bar. In between my bars, I'm going to add an 11 demi round and a bar. And then I'm going to go through the middle of the Arcos. When you're out through the middle of the Arcos, go ahead and add in another one of your copper Minos. And back down through the second hole of the one on the other side. When I'm out then, on goes a 2-hole bar and an 11. Pick up the second hole of the 2-hole bar that's already there. Once out then, on goes an 11 and a 2-hole bar and down through the center of the next Arcos. Add the Minos and down through. So you can see here, just to show you the Arcos and the Minos look. So the second set of Arcos and Minos here, I did not put a spacing between. You can see the the Minos sit exactly in the center of those Arcos beads. Here in the middle, you can see some are turning and some are facing straight. That's because they have that extra little bit of playroom. Going down the line then, I'm just going to add your 2-hole bar and your your 11 demi round. Go through that 2-hole bar, repeat it on the other side, 11 bar, go through the Arcos, and add the Minos. So continue down the project, adding in that second grouping of your 2-hole bar and the middle of your Minos bead. So here at the end, coming out my last 2-hole bar, I'm not adding a 2-hole bar in front of the end. So the end portion here just has the 2 grouping of the 2-hole bar. I'm going to add my 6 11s, which is going to mimic the other side. And then we're going to reinforce the clasp here. So I'm going up through everything that is already there. Reinforcing then that loop, then we're going to come down the other side and do the exact same thing on the other side. I like to rotate sides so the kind of pull to the project is the same on both sides. And then it has the same tightness the whole way through the project. If you wanted to do a peyote stitch, you could do that as well as you go through this clasp area the second time. Coming through the 8/0 seed bead then, I'm going to come down the opposite side of my grouping of my 6 11s. I'll add a couple more. I'm going to add 6 more and connect to that second 2-hole bar. Once the 6 are on, I'm going to continue the second side the exact same way as the first, adding on those 2-hole bars on either side. So on goes a 2-hole bar. 11, sorry. 2-hole bar down through the center of the Arcos, adding in the copper Minos, and then adding in my 2-hole bar, my 11, through the second hole of the first 2-hole bar that was on, another 11, 2-hole bar through the Arcos. So it's the same pattern on each side always. Once you have that pattern, we're going to continue creating the pattern coming down this opposite side. At the second end here, you're going to add your 2-hole bar, your 11-0, and go through the second hole of the 2-hole bar that's already there. I'm then going to add 6 of my 11 demi rounds. Once those are on, I'm going to go right along the project here through the 3 demi rounds that are on this side. And I'm going to go from the first side here over to the second side. To do that, I'm going to add in 1 11-0 demi round and then go over to this other side here and catch all of them. The one that I add in the middle, I was just going to kind of hang out there and fill an empty space. You can see it just kind of fills an empty space right in there. When I'm coming out the side then, I'm out all but 2 of the 11-0s here that I have on the side. When I'm out those 2 11-0s, I'm going to add beads to get down basically to my last section and my last pass through my beads. The last pass through the beads, it's a nice open area, so we're going to go ahead and get ready to add in our beads between here. So again, sticking with the number 6, 6 15-0s or 11-0s go on, and I go through that 2-hole bar. When I'm through the 2-hole bar here at the side, whenever I'm through a bar, I'm going to add an 11 and sew through the Minos. Coming out the Minos then, you're going to add an 11 and sew through the bar. That's always going to be the case next to the Arcos, is that you have an 11 going in between the Arcos and the bar. Coming out the bar then, we're going to add an 8 copper Minos and an 8. Go through the next opening of the 2-hole bar, add in an 11, and sew through both holes of the side Arcos. Coming out that Arcos then, add an 11, sew through the 2-hole bar, and add your 8 Minos 8 through the 2-hole bar, add an 11. You can see this bracelet is very much patterned, that it's going to do the exact same the whole way along. So you can see the groupings now of your beads right along the sides, and we're going to continue adding them in down this left side here, going around and kind of adding those 6 beads in on the end here to connect up through the beads. I'm going to jump into the middle here to connect to that middle bead down the side, and we're going to do the same thing on the opposite side to finish off our bracelet. Again, once you're through that last 2-hold bar, you're going to add 6 11-ohs. And we're going to skip through 2 of our 11s right there, and I'm going to catch the next couple. Once you're through those, you can see that kind of decorates the end there. And I'm going to go through 5 total beads. And they're hard to get between. Once you're through the 5, I'm going to actually remove my stop bead here. And get my tail untwisted. Once that stop bead is removed, it opens up this center line basically for you to attach something to. I'm going to use 2 11s right in there, and that brings me to center. And after those 2 11s, I'm going to tie a knot. You can then, if you want to, burn down a little bit that starter thread, or you can put a needle on it and kind of weave it back through. To cover up the knot, I'm going to put on an 8-0 and then 2 more 11s. I'm going to pick up then the seed bead so you can see what it looks like there. The 8-0 is going to cover up my knot. I'm going to pick up the seed beads on the other side and come down all but the last 2, and then add my 6 11-ohs to get to the opposite side. Once I have that in there, my 6 11s get added to connect to the outer edge. Go through the outer 2-hold bar there, and straight down the other side, adding in the same connection here of my 8-ohs, my Minos, and then my 11-ohs between the Arcos and the 2-hold bar. I'm down this whole second side of the bracelet, and I'm just going to show you how to finish off the end. And go in there and add my 11-oh before, pick up my 11-ohs, 6 of them, and that'll complete my side. Picking up all but the last 2 beads and going through those 11s. What I'm going to do then is simply sew back through the project a little bit and then tie off my thread, because we had already reinforced the end and it would get rather tight going through and adding that again. So I'm picking up one of my bridge threads there. I make a loop, sew through that loop once and twice to make a nice knot. Pull that nice and tight. Sew somewhere else in my project and do the same thing. Once you have your knots tied, you can burn off your thread. If you want to, you can go in and glue the knots that you created. You'll also want to glue or thread back if you didn't, or if you don't want to glue that thread beginning where we have it. I'm just going to go in here and burn this off. Go back to the beginning area here where I tied that knot, burn it down just a little bit more, add some glue, and then burn down the final piece. Then your bracelet is completely finished. The cool thing about this is it is a wider bracelet. It has a really modern look because of the shape of the Arcos and the Minos, and it's some nice colors as well. You could really change this up using different beads with it, if you don't have the Minos, some 3mm rounds would take care of that. You could also use a 6/0 seed bead in place of that as well, so just to give you some options. It was really fun trying to kind of come up with a design using all these new beads, which was a challenge in the spacing and the lining up. But I have a bunch of other designs hanging out with those Arcos and the Minos, as well as those demi rounds too. So it was really fun to create the Segovia bracelet with the nice geometric shapes going on. And I would invite you guys to check them out, try them out if you get a chance. If you do need any of the materials for the bracelet, you can go back to the beginning of the video and create or drop down the links there, or again go back to the description of the video underneath here and click on that to get the links to the different products used as well. Just so you know, for your reference, I did go through a little bit more than a tube of the bracelet. I'm sorry, a tube of the Arcos. Everything else, one tube will work for you. If you do want to do 2 colors, you'll have some extras as well to kind of do a color down the middle and 2 different colors down the sides. That would look nice as well. So fun patterned bracelet. If you want to stay connected with us, or you have friends that just got the Arco beads, they want to make this as well, you can share the video with them. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel to get regular updates on the new beads like these Arcos, Minos, and the demi rounds as well. Also, you can stay connected with us on Facebook in our beading and jewelry making group. You can ask to be a member there and interact with other like-minded people that are creative, that can help solve problems, and just a really nice group of creative individuals. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone, and have fun making the Segovia bracelet.